Do you remember that part in the 1990s rom-com called You've Got Mail when Meg Ryan, who's playing Kathleen Kelly, and Tom Hanks, who's playing Joe Fox, start chatting in the chat room, and Kathleen saying, I really wish I could find the words to say in the moment that I needed them. That would feel so good. And Joe Fox then replies and he says, oh, I have the opposite problem. I say exactly what the zinger is going to be and the words land perfectly, but it leaves me feeling completely and utterly miserable in my life. Today, that's what we're going to be talking about on this podcast episode, is what it feels like to be miserably satisfied. I'm so glad that you're here. Heyo, busy brain. Welcome to the Busy Brained Saint podcast, where faith meets focus. I'm Kamden Hainsworth, an expert ADHD coach, here to help you understand your mind with confidence. God knows your brain perfectly, so let's explore that divine design together and discover just how fulfilling your life can be, living with God and ADHD. Hello, you made it. I'm so happy that you are here. My brain is busy and my heart is full. Today's podcast episode is titled Miserably Satisfied, a look at godly attachment. Hey, if you have not yet downloaded the General Conference note-taking sheet that I came up with last General Conference, go to camdenadhdcoaching.com/General Conference to go download that for free now. We like to have something novel in ADHDville. It's a great way for me to be able to take notes and do my doodles during conference and still keep my ears open to some important things that I want to hear. So I hope that you take advantage of that. camdenadhdcoaching.com/General Conference. All right, let's go ahead and hop into this. What does it mean to be miserably satisfied? Do you know this feeling where maybe you've seen it with your kids? They think that they're going to finally get their way, and then they go into their room and, I might have been offered the smaller piece of cake, but because I threw the tantrum and said, fine, I don't want any, now I'm in my bedroom and I'm just wanting cake. We sabotage ourselves sometimes this way when our limbic brain, which is our survival brain, comes online and we start listening to that brain a lot more. And I've been thinking about God's love for his children, how his love is perfect. And then with it being the Holy Week leading up to Easter, I went into Matthew 21 and I was trying to look for what was Christ teaching the people. And there was this one parable that I do not remember reading in the past, but essentially is about a vineyard, an owner of a vineyard, and he gets the vineyard all ready to go, and then he leaves it in the hands of these caregivers. And so then the owner goes on a trip, and he sends his servants during the harvest season, I'm assuming, to go and get the harvest and bring it back. The caretakers of this vineyard kill all the servants, or they beat all the servants when they come back. And he's thinking, this is super strange. Let me send a couple more servants and we'll see what happens. And so he sends more servants and the same thing happens. Ultimately, he decides, you know what? I'm royalty or I have clout, so I'm going to send a member of my family to go get the crops from, I guess, our vineyard crops, regardless, to go get whatever grew and to bring it back to me. And so he sends his son, and his son is also killed. And the people think, yeah, this is how we're going to be able to get everything, is if we continue to kill these servants. And of course, Christ is speaking to the Pharisees and to the chief priests at this moment. And he's essentially saying, listen, God has sent prophets. He's tried to warn you. He's tried to love on you and give you very clearly what the intentions are, but you have stoned them and you have killed them up to this point. And ultimately, you will kill me, the Son of God, which is very humbling, especially as Christ being God and knowing that within him is the power to make that not happen. But he's having to be submissive and humble and fulfill on his promise. Anyway, I digress. So we think about this miserable satisfaction and what it must have felt like for some of those people to see Christ crucified and to see, why did we do this? We thought that this would solve everything. And then to see Christianity still continue to grow. And maybe just even in their hearts, like they're miserably satisfied. They think that they got what they wanted. They think that they crucified this blasphemous person, and though it didn't work out for them in the end. And sometimes we look at our goals and our dreams and our ambitions, and we almost, if you guys have heard the term self-sabotage, we almost do that to ourselves because we are giving in to unhealthy attachment styles. So each one of us, and as we're in relationship to people, whether that's being in relationship to God, with our spouse, with our children, with our friends, family, that we have a certain style that we have acquired. This is all based upon, let's see if I can find the names. Attachment theory developed by John Bowlby and expanded by Mary Ainsworth. And that in this attachment style that we learned when we were kids, we tend to relate with that attachment styles to adult relationships now. And some of your kids are developing them right now, and maybe in understanding what their attachment style is, this might also help you. But let's go ahead and put our gaze on our relationship with God right now and how our attachment styles that we learned when we were children might have a lot to do with why we are feeling miserably satisfied. And if it's really the kind of life that we want to live. All through the lens of ADHD too. We have a very specific kind of lived experience as busy brains, okay? We don't operate in the same way that most of neurotypical society does. And so over time, we have received messages about what is right, what is wrong, what is different, what is strange, what is smart, what is dumb about who we are. And so with that lens on, let's go ahead and hop into these 4 attachment styles. Secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. Secure attachment is like this core belief of I'm okay and people are generally safe. They're comfortable with closeness and with independence. They can communicate their needs clearly and they handle conflict without spiraling. It feels like I can need you without losing myself. This is the goal, okay? At least that's how I see it. The secure attachment is what we want for our children, is what we want for ourselves, is what we want for our marriage, for myself and for my partner, that we can both be secure in our attachment. Second is anxious attachment. I might be abandoned. Craves closeness but fears rejection, overthinks, seeks reassurance, can emotionally feel up and down in relationships. It might feel like, do you still love me? Are you sure? That constant need of reassurance. This also might look like, I need to belong to you. I need to know that I'm good. I need to have your acceptance. So will you continue to validate me that I'm acceptable, that I'm good, that you're not going to reject me, that you're always going to love me? Okay, the third is avoidant attachment. I can't rely on others. They value independence a lot. They pull away when things get emotional. They struggle to express their needs. It might sound like I'm better off handling things on my own. Fourth, disorganized attachment. It's a little bit of both here. Connection feels unsafe, but I still want it. This is a mix of anxious and avoidant. They want the closeness, but they also fear it. It can feel confusing or intense in relationships. It might sound like, okay, come close to me. Wait, no, that's too close. Okay, go away. This back and forth, this oscillating between anxiousness and independence, and not really feeling settled in either one of them. So when we think about God and God's love for us, right, the topic today is miserably satisfied, to look at godly attachment. We want to lean toward the secure attachment. I'm okay. I can need you, God, without losing who I am. And I want to check my verbiage a little bit more on that, because there is a certain experience, and I think I've talked about this, like when we serve our missions, that we think, okay, I'm going to lose myself in the work. And what if God is calling you specifically to be you in your mission, because God needs you just as you are, and losing completely who you are and becoming someone completely different, maybe we're not helping as many people as we could or supporting as many people. So I think that there is a variety of definitions about what losing oneself might look like. And for today's conversation, how about we can talk about that we don't have to become a completely different person in order to love. We don't have to be unrecognizable to ourselves. I've had clients before tell me, like, I just feel like I'm a stranger in my body. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know what likes or dislikes I have. I've been so molded by trying to appease other people and to belong to them or whatever it might be that I don't even know who I am. And I don't see that's who God calls us to be. I was listening to Terrell Givens on the Faith Matters podcast most recently, And he said something like, love respects agency. So love understands that other people have their choice, but it also seeks really strongly to influence the others to live a thriving life. And he goes in on saying our definition of thriving, me thriving, how I want to thrive might be different than how you want to thrive. And so that's why there's oftentimes dissonance, but it honors that there's that difference and still seeks to influence you to thrive. So let's go back to this parable in the scriptures. God sent prophets, God sent servants to go to the caretakers, right? To go to the vineyard. And that's because God loved those people. He sent the servants. But the people couldn't see that as love. They could only see it as you're taking things away from us, okay? And we don't need to continue the parable and get crazy with it, but and yet when the servants were killed, he didn't exert his power in this parable to go kill those people. He had to honor the agency. And then he still came back and he said, okay, let me try again. Let me try a different kind of servant. Okay, let me even try my family that has the ring that says that they're royalty. No, that part wasn't in there, but let me do something even more, the best thing that I could give them if I can't give them exactly myself. And he still had to honor their agency. And what does God do over and over in the scriptures? He keeps coming back. The power is still there. He never gives up on us. Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife most recently has also taught me in her work that weak people seek to control and strong people seek to love. And if this is loving, if loving is honoring other people's choices while still trying with our whole heart to influence them to have a thriving life, then that's what I want to be. I want to be a strong person who loves fiercely. And what kind of attachment style must I have in order to hold that true? If someone who I love is right in front of me and they're making choices that are very outside of my understanding of what a thriving life is, what happens if I have an anxious attachment? Maybe now I'm going to start to overdo it, okay? No, I need you to be safe. I need you to belong. I need to know that you see things my way. I need you to hear my perspective and believe me. I need you to agree with me, right? From that anxiety and that attachment, anxious attachment, they're trying to exert control because they're so afraid that if they can't belong to this person or if this person is going to reject them, that something bad's going to happen. And so they overdo it. And I am so much in that camp, especially in parenting. Only recently am I starting to understand what it really means to let go and to give people space to step into their own power in their own time in their own way, and how that is a million times better than anything that I could ever do by this anxiety that propels me more forward. And that's very different. The way that I approached my adolescence is very different than a lot of my children. And hallelujah, that's so good, right? Because in my adolescence, I developed anxious attachment. I felt like I had to prove myself in order to be loved and seen. And I have kids that are the same way, right? So I'm a parent and I have kids with anxious attachment too that we're trying to heal and remedy and educate upon. And so is that the kind of relationship that I want to have with love? Is that the kind of relationship God has with me? That he's so worried about me that he's going to smother me and take away my agency and control me? And is that how God operates? Or does God send messages that are going to help me to thrive and also honor my agency? That's really a whole different way of approaching this, right? I think the more that we can be honest with our attachment style, the more that we can be honest with how we respond when people have differing beliefs than us, the more that we can actually tell ourselves what is true, the stronger we become in ourselves. And that secure attachment becomes more of how we operate. There are relationships in my life that were once very much anxious. And it could be two anxious people, anxious. It could be anxious avoidant. It could be anxious and this disorganized chaos, right? So it's like back and forth. And now I'm noticing that even if they're still in the anxiety, I'm in more security. Their anxiety doesn't throw me off. I can still hold on to myself even in their worry. Or they might split for the hills, okay, because I leaned into my secure attachment and I maybe said something very clearly, kindly, but clearly, and that caused them to feel like they needed to leave or get angry or whatever it might be. And I get to hold my security that it was still a good choice for me because love says that's their choice. They can push away from me. They can go throw a tantrum or go be angry or go elsewhere, not want to be close to me. And I will always still seek to influence them for a thriving life. It's a really beautiful path when we start to see just how much power we do have in our own life, regardless of how other people show up. I love working with my teenage clients. I love all of my clients because of this principle, but especially my ADHD. You guys all have ADHD. Okay, what I'm trying to say is it's so fun to be able to support teenagers who have parents or teachers or administration where they still are living in this very wild ADHD sphere where maybe things are popping out of their mouth all the time, or maybe they're making some pretty unwise choices, or they're making choices not based upon their core values, but based upon they want to be defiant or they want to be seen as cool or whatever it might be, that impulsive side of their ADHD. And then to bring this up to them and help them see that they don't actually have to be bossed around by someone else's actions, that they can hold on to themselves and still make actions, still make choices in their life that honor the kind of person that they want to be. An example of this might be restrictions on technology. Okay, so a parent puts restrictions on technology, and let's say that the parents are in this anxious energy and they are getting really upset and scared. And mind you, once again, I'm in this camp a lot of the time too. We care about our kids. We want them to be safe. But we do so much that we're creating so much anxiousness that we get really pushy and in that lower brain or in that limbic brain with how we're responding or acting. And to have a teenager be able to come in and let's go to the first example where maybe they also acknowledge that they're spending too much time on technology. And in themselves, they're saying, man, I'd rather go outside with my friends, or I'd rather start to do art, or I'd rather go exercise or something like that. And in themselves, they've come to that conclusion, but now the anxious parent comes in and starts to throw around consequences. And in order to feel like they have choice in that situation, they say, fine. And they get upset and they might say some profanities, or they might respond in a way that's really negative and not in alignment. And maybe now they don't go outside with their friends. They don't go exercise. They don't do art because they're trying to spite the anxious parent that's coming on toward them. Another way of looking at this is they can't live with their parents being satisfied that in exerting their anxious energy, the teenager still decided to lower their technology time and get outside. They don't want to give them the satisfaction of believing that was because of them. And so they turn around the other way and do something different, which ultimately makes them what? Miserably satisfied. That's why it's the title of this podcast is ultimately when we allow other people's opinions or pressures or anxieties to shift or to shake our own desires, then we may be satisfied for a moment, but when we're left with who we truly are, we are really miserable because we're not living the life that we knew that we could. And so in the second scenario with this teenager and these parents, the parents still come in anxious, okay? Because we can't control what other people are. And I hope you all are seeing that there is this beautiful parallel to anything, right? This could be the husband coming in anxious. This could be the grandma coming in anxious, the neighbor, the friend coming in anxious, okay? We can't control what they're going to do. All we can do is love, respect their agency, and then influence them as best as we can to help them thrive in their life, right? So watch how this happens. Why are you on technology so much? Is what the parents might say. If you keep doing this, we're going to have to cut it all off permanently and yada, yada, yada. And the conversation is pointing to the issue being the phone. But someone who is in a secure attachment is not in scarcity. Okay? They're comfortable with closeness and independence. So that means I'm comfortable having a conversation with you, mom and dad. And mind you, I am not an advocate for kids having to take care of their parents. I'm just saying it's fun as a coach to be able to help teenagers show up with a level of maturity that as parents sometimes we slip into. We slip into this immaturity. And so I just think that's really cool. It's a really wonderful thing. I love it when my kids astound me. I love when my kids blow me away. And I can be so inspired by them. Not because they have to, not because I'm not responsible, but it's just inspiring to see their growth. Okay, let's get back to it. So I'm comfortable with us having this conversation, and I'm still not going to lose sight of what's important to me, but I'm also not going to let your anxiety deter me from what I really want out of my life. And we can communicate our needs clearly. We can handle conflict without spiraling. So in this situation where we have the anxious parent come in and the avoidant child maybe leaving or stomping off because they don't want to be rejected or seen as anything less than, so they go find their own independence. Fine, I can't rely upon you guys, so I'm going to leave. As we're building that secure attachment, because being miserably satisfied is no longer fun anymore, it's not worth it. We're no longer talking about a cell phone or technology. We're talking about a relationship. And so I hope that you can open your ears to you and God in this as well. We're no longer talking about certain bullet points in the Strength of the Youth pamphlet in the 90s. We're no longer talking about particular instances of maybe the temple questions or maybe certain talks that will come up in general conference or things that we don't understand. We're no longer talking about how now we have 3 classes on Sundays for 25 minutes, but we're talking more about the relationship. Okay, so this teenager comes to their parents and says, hey, I can see that this is causing you a lot of pain and that you're feeling pretty stressed out about it. And I'm sorry, I have been spending a lot of time on technology. And I also feel like that I want to change. I'm in this moment even more interested in why it's causing you guys so much stress. What is it that's causing you to feel so sad or scared or angry at me about this? Can you help me understand from your perspective what you're seeing that maybe I'm not? Can you imagine if a teenager was able to say that from a secure attachment, not from, I'm going to ask these questions so that they think that I'm awesome, and so then I now belong more clearly. Not from that attachment or even from the avoidant of, I'm going to ask these questions so that we can like chill out the situation so I finally can go back to my room and get on technology. But if they were really able to see that their choice is still in the situation and in talking about the relationship that they want to improve with their parents, or God, you guys hearing this, help me see from your perspective why you think this is a thriving life. Help me see your love more clearly, because I'm not seeing it so clearly. Thank you for respecting my agency. And also, I think that I know how I'm thriving, but I'm curious about what you're seeing that maybe I'm not. We don't need to be bossed around by this miserable satisfaction. Wouldn't it be beautiful if instead we could learn more of this secure attachment and show up with our loved ones and show up with God, knowing that we're good with ourselves and people are generally good and people are generally trying to live a happy life, and we can be close with God. We can be happy when we're with God. We can also be happy when we're with ourselves. That I can be happy and excited to be with my husband, and I can also be happy with self. I can be happy and joyful with my kids, and I can also be happy with myself or with my friends and also happy with myself. Not in a means of avoiding that I can't rely upon people, that I don't want to be around people, and so I better be with myself, but truly being secure that I know who I am. And yes, I might have ADHD. Yes, I might show up late sometimes. Yes, I might get dates and times mixed up, and I might be a little impulsive sometimes, and I might spend too much and forget to eat, and all numbers of different things, right? And yet I can be secure in who I am as a person and let those things not really define anything to do with who I actually am. When we get a hold of ourselves that way, think of how we might be able to love more people from a place of strength, not from a place of control. Think of how deeply satisfying and life-giving that type of love is when we become proactive in how we hold ourselves and no longer are so heavily influenced and reactive when other people show up with their own trauma, their own stories, their own perspectives. I see a really beautiful community of faithful, God-driven hearts that no longer fear the difference, but they honor the agency. And they say instead, help me see how your choices are helping you thrive. I don't have to understand them, but I'm here to hear them, to genuinely be interested, because this is how we love. Thank you so much for being here today. Happy Easter. As always, know how much I love you, and I'm always cheering you on. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Busy Brained Saint podcast. If you're eager to explore the world of ADHD coaching, make sure to connect with me on Instagram at Kamden_ADHD or visit my website, KamdenADHDcoaching.com. For more LDS-specific ADHD content, don't forget to follow this podcast and join us on Instagram at The Busy Brained Saint. Listen, I'm here to support you on your journey. I cannot wait to have you as a part of our community. Stay engaged, stay inspired, and remember, you're not alone here. Thanks for being a part of the Busy Brained Saint family.